Before I begin tonight's reading, may I just say how deeply grateful and humbled I am that you folks in the East Midlands Synod chose to use my book, An Alphabet for Advent, as your devotions this year. I have been blessed by the variety of voices and the readings that I've heard each night. I told Jeffrey and Derek some time ago that, like many ministers, I don't really have a church that I can worship in, but I think I found a church home with you folks in the East Midlands area, and I am deeply grateful for your caring and friendship and support. Now the reading. Just about every preacher I know says that the hardest Sunday to preach on is Easter. I understand that sentiment, but for me it is Christmas Eve. How many new ways can one come up with to tell the story of the birth of sweet baby Jesus in the night and placed in a manger with only animals for friends? So one year, desperate to come up with something new for a family service, you can't get too deep in theology if there are a bunch of squirming kids waiting to rush home to see how many presents are under the tree. I decided to add a twist. Using a Lessons in Carols liturgy, I invited families to bring a beloved figurine from their home creche nativity sets, which they could come up and place on the table. After that portion of the story the figurines represented was read. Of course, I made sure to have some extras on hand for families who forgot or didn't have nativities at home or were guests. It was a marvelous time. It was fun to sit there and watch folks, usually children or grandchildren, bring the figurine up and place it with the other cast of characters in the story. At the end of the service, before folks came up to pick up their nativity piece, I noticed the usual shepherds, but also a tiny ballerina and one Batman action figure. There were the wise men, as well as a grandmother from someone's dollhouse. There were the expected sheep, cattle, and camels, but there is also a dog, a cat, a lizard, a mouse, an alligator, and stuck way in the back looking at baby Jesus was a dinosaur. The next year we repeated the service, and this time Eeyore, a unicorn, and Harry Potter, Hermione, and Hagrid showed up. Someone remarked that what was once a neat, orderly scene was now more like a chaotic zoo. And as I looked at all those different figures that turned up, it struck me that this really was what the birth of Jesus, the coming of God to be with us, is all about. Old traditionalists might be, and were, offended by some of the folk and animals who showed up at the stable, but isn't the incarnation really about the promise of a new creation? Isn't it a reminder that the God who created everything, including cows, sheep, camels, dinosaurs, but also our imaginations, which visualize fantastic creatures and gloomy donkeys, is still creating in our hearts, souls, and minds? Isn't what happened 2,000 years ago the recognition that what God is going to accomplish through that one simple birth is going to transform the rich, complex universes around us? So maybe we should start expanding the creche sets in our homes and churches to include the marvelous variety of all that has flowed out of God's beautiful and deep imagination, to remind us that all creation, from everywhere and from every time, rejoiced and continues to rejoice in God's grace and wonder that was born that night. Z is for zoo.